Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. Voting is underway in AZAD, Jammu and Kashmir to elect a new parliament. More than 3.2 million Kashmiris are registered to cast their ballots, while over 700 candidates are contesting for the 45 seats. Indian forces have murdered another civilian in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The youth was targeted during so-called search operations in Kulgam district's Yaripura area. Brazil has registered more than 1,100 daily deaths from COVID-19 and over 38,000 cases. In Pakistan, 45 more people have died, while more than 2,800 tested positive overnight. Globally, the virus has claimed over 4 million lives and infected more than 193 million people. The Afghan government has imposed a nighttime curfew across 31 provinces to curb surging violence and limit the Taliban's movement. The Interior Ministry, however, said Kabul, Panjshir and Nangarhar provinces are exempted. Meanwhile, U.S. Defense Secretary said Afghan forces must slow down the Taliban's momentum before attempting to retake territory. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back. Voting is underway in AZAD, Jammu and Kashmir to elect a new parliament. Over 700 candidates are contesting for 45 seats of the Legislative Assembly. In sharp contrast to the elections held in the Indian-occupied Kashmir, where the majority of locals boycotted polls amid a crushing curfew, voters in AZAD, Jammu and Kashmir are exercising their right in a democratic, free and safe environment. A vibrant election campaign preceded the elections where tens of thousands showed up at political public meetings. More than 3.2 million Kashmiris are registered to cast their ballots. 45 seats are up for grab in the 53-member House for a 5-year term. Among them, 12 seats are reserved for refugees from occupied Jammu and Kashmir settled in Pakistan. Over 40,000 security personnel, including the army, will perform duties to ensure peaceful voting. According to the AJK Election Commission officials, polling will conclude at 5 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time. For more on this, we are joined by Minahil Ahmed, our correspondent, speaking to us live from Islamabad. Now, Minahil, can you please share the general atmosphere and the vibe on the ground?
Well, yes, the atmosphere is quite friendly. I've been to quite a few polling stations, and currently I'm at the G9 polling station in Islamabad, and the atmosphere is extremely enabling and motivating. Men, women, children, and people from different walks of life are here to cast their vote and elect a new government in Azad, Jammu and Kashmir.
Okay, Minahil, can you tell us about the special seats reserved for Kashmiris from the Indian-occupied part of the valley?
Well, 12 seats have been reserved for the Kashmiri refugees who migrated from Indian-occupied illegal Kashmir in 1947 and 1965 and are now settled in various parts of Pakistan. Any political party who wins a majority or all of these 12 seats will be in a comfortable position to clinch the spot as a Prime Minister of Azad, Jammu and Kashmir. And Rawalpindi, Narowal and Sialkot currently are the districts with the largest concentration of these refugee voters, as 4 seats will be elected from these areas.
We are witnessing through the lens of the international media and local Kashmiri leadership the state of affairs of the elections held in the Indian-occupied Kashmir. How do the people see these elections in comparison to those?
Well, yes, you see, we have seen through international media of how elections in occupied Kashmir are usually held. There's usually a communication blackout, a curfew, and all sorts of reservations. However, over here, it's the complete opposite. The Election Commission of Pakistan has made sure and deployed security forces, army and ranger to make sure that the elections are free and fair, and that every Kashmiri will be able to cast their vote and elect their own representative.
What was the prime campaign issue of the Kashmiris in the run-up to these polls?
Well, you see, the Kashmiri community, it's a really closed-in community, and unfortunately, due to history, they've been divided on both sides of the border. And like every year, this year, their main concern is for the Kashmiri issue to be resolved according to the UN resolution, and for the families to be reunited. And, there are quite a few families living in this side of Kashmir who have family on the other side of Kashmir. And their main concern for all these years and this year is to resolve the Kashmir issue according to the UN resolutions and grant a plebiscite.
Thank you so much for the update on the Kashmir election. Now, moving on, Indian forces have martyred another civilian in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The youth was targeted during so-called search operation in Kulgam district's Yaripura area. Occupation forces have imposed a complete communications blackout in the area. The operation was underway till the last reports came in. The Indian forces have now killed 6 Kashmiris in Kulgam, Bandipora and Baramulla district over the past 48 hours. Rights groups say the occupying troops have martyred at least 400 Kashmiris since August 2019. Brazil has registered more than 1,100 daily deaths from COVID-19 and over 38,000 cases. Globally, the virus has claimed over 4 million lives and infected more than 193 million people. More in this report. Patience across the world is running out as the new wave of COVID-19 cases, fueled by the Delta variant, forces the world back to lock itself down. Tens of thousands in Australia, France, Italy, Greece, and the United Kingdom took to the streets against the re-emergence of restrictions. The demonstrations are becoming increasingly violent over time, with protesters clashing with the police, accusing their governments of eroding civil liberties. Anger over government mishandling of the pandemic is also on the rise, especially against Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. But with all that anger and frustration, the surge in cases worldwide is no myth. The World Health Organization says the Delta variant, detected in 124 territories worldwide, is expected to become the dominant globally in the coming months. The health body has predicted that there could be more than 200 million confirmed cases within a matter of weeks. Britain has reported 86 deaths within 28 days of a positive test. India has logged another 535 fatalities over the past 24 hours. The country's crisis has worsened with the growing epidemic of black fungus. More than 4,300 people have died of the fungus so far. In Pakistan, the coronavirus has claimed 45 more lives overnight. The health ministry says the death toll has reached 23,016. The ministry registered more than 2,800 infections over the past 24 hours. The country's positivity rate has surged to 6.32%. The ministry says the caseload has exceeded 1,004,000, while almost 926,000 people have recovered from the disease so far. More than 55,000 cases are active and over 2,500 of them are in critical condition. Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud will arrive in Islamabad on an official visit on the 27th of July. It will be Prince Faisal's second state visit to Pakistan within a year. A Pakistani government spokesperson said bilateral relations and cooperation in various fields will be reviewed in this meeting. The Saudi Arabian embassy said that the visit is a continuation of high-level engagements between the two countries. Earlier, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman visited Islamabad in February 2019. The two sides had signed investment deals worth $20 billion during his visit. Prime Minister Imran Khan also visited Riyadh in May and signed several agreements on economic, trade, and defense cooperation. Russia and Tajikistan have discussed joint measures to counter threats from the Taliban in the Tajik-Afghan border area. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu discussed this with his Tajik counterpart Sher Ali Mirzo in a telephone call. This comes a day after Russia pledged to help its ally Tajikistan to build a new outpost on the border. Russia operates a military base in Tajikistan whose government has expressed concern about the deteriorating situation in Afghanistan. The two countries and Uzbekistan will hold joint military drills close to the Tajik-Afghan border next month. Moscow has already started delivering new hardware to its Tajik base to reinforce the border. Iran has dismissed UN human rights boss's criticism on violence and protest over water shortages as meddling in its internal affairs. In a statement, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Saeed Khatibzadeh said UN's Rights Commissioner Michelle Bachet's biased comments were not within the scope of her responsibilities. Bachet had expressed concern about deaths and injuries and widespread detentions over the past week in the southwestern province of Khuzestan. In addition to the drought, Khatibzadeh said U.S. sanctions had prevented the transfer of technology to and investment in Khuzestan's water sector. Meanwhile, rallies in support of the protest in the oil-rich province spread to the northwest of the country. According to Iranian officials, at least one policeman and 3 protesters have been shot dead. However, Amnesty International said at least 8 people had been killed during the unrest. The United States says it will stress the need for a level playing field in the upcoming meeting with China. Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman will hold talks with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Tianjin on Monday. U.S. officials said Sherman will underscore that Washington does not want the stiff and sustained competition to veer into conflict. The official said the U.S. wants to ensure that there are guardrails in place to responsibly manage the relationship. Talking to reporters, they said the Tianjin meeting will be a continuation of the Alaskan talks. They added that all dimensions of the relationship will be on the table. Her talks follow several combative months since the country's first senior diplomatic meeting under Biden's administration in March. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Afghan government has imposed a nighttime curfew across 31 provinces. The Interior Ministry says the move is aimed at curbing violence and limiting the Taliban's movements. The ministry said Kabul, Panjshir, and Nangarhar provinces are exempted. Earlier, U.S. Defense Secretary said Afghan forces must slow the Taliban's momentum before attempting to retake territory. Talking to reporters, Austin said Afghan's leadership is consolidating the forces around the key population centers. Meanwhile, the Afghan Defense Ministry says it has killed 175 Taliban in 14 provinces overnight. It said 84 Taliban were injured in the operations, while security forces also defused 9 improvised explosive devices. In India, at least 9 people have died in floods triggered by heavy rains at southwest Karnataka state. Talking to the media, Karnataka officials said at least 3 others are missing in the flood-affected regions. Authorities have issued a red alert in 7 districts of the state, predicting 3 more days of rainfall. Rescue teams struggle through thick sludge and debris to reach dozens of submerged homes. The death toll from landslides and accidents caused by monsoon rains in India has risen to 145. China's eastern coast is bracing for a major typhoon just days after deadly floods devastated the central parts of the country. The typhoon, dubbed Infa, is expected to make landfall in the province of Zhejiang near Shanghai today. The typhoon is about 95 kilometers away from the province and moving at a speed of 15 kilometers per hour. Forecasters warn it could trigger flash flooding, mudslides, and gusts of winds up to 120 miles per hour. The Zhejiang Emergency Management Department upgraded its typhoon response to the highest level. Authorities shut down railways and ports, with flights canceled and villagers evacuated from temporary shelters. In the United States, firefighters have gained ground on the nation's biggest blaze as smoke from scores of raging wildfires block the sunlight. Officials say the bootleg fire in Oregon has now been contained by 42%. Smoke in the lower atmosphere coming from California wildfires has floated over the bootleg, helping the crews make progress. According to the authorities, the smoke's shading created cooler and more stable surface conditions. Around 2,000 firefighters are battling the blaze, which has scorched over 401,000 acres in the state. More than 80 large active wildfires in 13 U.S. states have so far charred about 1.3 million acres. In Germany, a Munich-based travel agency is selling tickets to space. The €250,000 ticket will be letting flyers fly aboard the Virgin Galactic for space for an hour. More on this report.
Luxury travel agents Design Raisin is the only agency in Germany handling the bookings for space travel. The agency's manager, Marion Aliabadi, says anyone can fly provided they are physically fit and not recovering from an operation.
It doesn't matter how old you are. You can be 90. If you're healthy and sporty, there are people who are 90 years old and still do many things. Age is not the limit, health is. The cardiovascular system should be okay. A recent heart attack or operation is not ideal because there is pressure on the body and nobody wants a scar breaking.
Commercial space travel has drawn mixed opinions from the public, with some excited by the possibility while others remaining skeptical.
Well, I like the idea because at first glance it looks totally unreal and utopian. But with any sort of progress, you have to start somewhere. So I find it quite interesting.
No, not for me. I'm scared of space. I'm rather on Earth. I'm also scared of water. It's not for me.
With billionaires Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos flying into space recently, there has been a lot of talk surrounding commercial space travel. Ali Abadi stumbled across Branson's project in 2009 and undertook 12 years of training to understand what she is selling. So far, her agency has managed to sell 8 tickets to male clients.
It's now time to take a look at the weather updates from around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at indus.news.